Real Slim Shady. That's me, the real Slim Blackie. Oh my god! I'm about to real Slim Shady. Whoa, 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 whoa. 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 Whoa.
Esses dias eu tava navegando pela internet quando eu me vi jogando Minecraft. De uma hora pra outra eu tava procurando novos minérios, novos biomas, novas aventuras, da mesma forma que eu buscava.
Nossa, tá alto pra caralho. Essa porra. Tô surdo, viado. Ai, eu vou gozar. Mas sabe por quê?
Uma tela pra simular a vida, porque o celular simplesmente não interessaria.
Mas sabe
No
por
GTA,
quê?
por exemplo, a gente quase não usa ele.
Sabe
e nos
por
outros
quê?
jogos ele nem existe. E a realidade é que eu demorei muito tempo pra entender
Sabe por
o que
quê?
o título desse vídeo já te disse. Você, assim como eu, não vê o que existe, vê o que entende.
Sabe
a
por
realidade
quê?
é interpretada pela mente. E o que a mente entende se torna verdade. Em 1965, um líder chamado Laszlo Polga sonhava em consolidar a sua filosofia que dizia que gênios não nascem, são construídos.
Nem
Segundo ele,
fudendo.
qualquer pessoa que nascesse em um ambiente específico que a treinasse desde cedo
Sim.
poderia se tornar gênia depois de
Quem
tempo.
diria?
Ele viria usar o xadrez para
Puta
provar
que
isso
pariu.
em 1969, quando ele teve a primeira das suas 3 filhas, Susan Polgar, que viria se tornar número 1 do ranking feminino aos 15 anos e campeã grande mestre aos 21. A filha do meio
Olha aí, ó. Não tô errado, cara. Travou tudo, velho.
Polgar, que foi mestre internacional aos 15 e campeã grande mestre feminina aos 14. E por fim, Judith Polgar, a sua filha mais nova, considerada a melhor jogadora de xadrez da história, sendo campeã grande mestre aos 15 anos, sendo a única mulher no top 10 competindo contra homens e já tendo feito a façanha de derrotar 11 campeões mundiais, incluindo Magnus Carlsen. Todas as 3 filhas de Laszlo Polgar viraram exímias jogadoras de xadrez, não por coincidência, por força de vontade ou por talento inato, mas sim porque aquele ambiente era justamente o que
Ou
elas
seja,
entendiam como
it's over.
normal.
Brutal.
Mas o que será que eu e você entendemos como normal quando o jornal só te mostra notícias miseráveis, o seu celular só te mostra pessoas da sua idade viajando e dirigindo carros que custam mais do que a sua casa,
Carros!
e a vida perfeita dos demais parece muito mais interessante que a sua. Olhando esses ingredientes dá pra perceber que sim, estamos na receita perfeita para viver caos de níveis distintos, que começam desde procrastinar nossos sonhos em prol de nunca demos o melhor de si, até níveis surrealmente imbecis, tipo tomar como filosofia de vida terraplanismo ou se tornar Red Pill.
Você tinha medo de falar e parecer burro. Hoje não. Hoje você fala, você é burro e protege a sua burrice.
Não, tem o direito de ser burro, tem o direito de falar o que ele pensa. Não, porra, democracia, caralho, porra, esse cara... Não! Você tem o direito
Ó.
de falar o que você pensa, só que se você for burro, você tem que ser humilhado. É assim que é a realidade dos fatos. Só que hoje
Sim.
não. Ah, não, deixa ele. Ah, não, deixa ele tá falando, ele tá falando lá. Tá ligado?
Deixa ele, mano. É dodói, deixa ele.
Não, tá tudo bem, não, ele tá exercendo o direito dele.
Deixa ele. É o de leira, deixa ele, deixa ele.
Ok, voltando. Mentira existiram pra mim. Pra você também. As circunstâncias do ambiente em que vive não são só determinantes pra você achar o amor da sua vida ou pra você nascer praticamente alinhado a uma religião específica. Mesmo
Será?
se eu nascesse na Índia, eu provavelmente seria hinduísta. Se eu nascesse no Egito, eu provavelmente seria muçulmano. Se eu nascesse na Rússia, eu provavelmente me casaria com uma loira e beberia vodka. Enfim, eu não seria a mesma pessoa. Mas isso todo mundo sabe, mano. Exatamente. Então seria lógico que todo mundo soubesse também que se eu me colocar mentalmente e fisicamente num ambiente onde a circunstância de fazer uma atividade específica seja a única opção, eu invariavelmente vou me tornar bom naquilo. Até porque toda
Exato.
excelência geralmente está por trás de um enorme véu de chatice. Um experimento feito em 2014, publicado na revista Science, colocou pessoas num quarto branco fechado, sem telas, sem papel, sem nada. A única coisa que tinha era um botão vermelho que quando elas apertavam dava um choque horrível. 67% dos homens e 25% das mulheres apertaram o botão nos primeiros 15 minutos, unicamente para ficar sentindo o choque ao invés de não fazer nada. Porque não existe chatice maior do que não fazer nada. Então se o seu ambiente só tem
Existe sim.
aquilo, você vai fazer. Exatamente daquela mesma forma que se o Minecraft só me desse como única opção minerar pra upar a minha picareta de pedra pra picareta de ferro, quem diria que era exatamente isso que eu iria buscar. Afinal, era a única opção. Isso não tem nada a ver com Minecraft, nem com tem a ver com perceber ao longo desse vídeo
Perceba.
que talvez você não seja multitarefa, muito menos polivalente ou interessado demais por diversos assuntos para ser especialista em um só, como tanta gente diz que é. Mas na maioria das vezes você não é nada disso, você só se dá opções demais para que as que você escolha sejam priorizadas. Até porque nenhum vídeo assistido naquele seu rolado feed no Instagram vai te dar tanta dopamina quanto desvendar o véu do cérebro e algo que você realmente escolhe. Que perseguição que você tá vendo? Tá vendo o editor, né? Escolhi essa edição. Exatamente como um player que explora um mundo aberto sem saber nem o que tá por vir, se explorando dentro da sua própria vida as circunstâncias que te levem aonde você quer chegar. Que foi exatamente isso que eu fiz sem perceber quando eu editei um vídeo pela primeira vez aos 11 anos, ou quando eu fiz design pela primeira vez com 10 anos. Também provavelmente foi a mesma forma que Tarantino assistiu filmes incansavelmente dos 7 aos 20 anos, sem saber que aos 29 ele lançaria o próprio, e aos 9 anos Tony Hawk também ganhou um brinquedinho de 4 rodas, que depois de um tempo ele ia, você sabe, né? O resto é história. E ainda há muito tempo pra você criar a sua. Porque talvez você não tenha nem 30, 40, 50. Ou você só descubra o que mais ama na vida por uma viagem que fez. Ou só conheça o amor da sua vida por um curso da faculdade que você sequer vai terminar. Os fascínios da coincidência na vida são muito intrigantes, então não duvide de nada. Assim como esses dois aqui apareceram na mesma foto 11 anos antes de se conhecerem e se casarem. Antes desse vídeo parecia difícil acreditar, e pode ser que agora ainda pareça. A vida é o jogo mais interessante quando você se dispõe a pegar o controle, ao invés de deixar que a máquina decida o que fazer. Então, por favor, não deixe que joguem esse jogo por você. Ainda temos muitas fases a vencer. E se Deus nessa vida não inventou o XP, provavelmente a liberdade é o nosso maior poder.
Olha aí, meu nobre.
E se você também quer ter o poder de fazer e viver de vídeos tipo esse que você acabou de assistir, o primeiro link da descrição desse vídeo tem uma aula exclusiva minha ensinando tudo sobre como viver e fazer vídeos tipo esse, tipo vários que tem aí no canal.
Puta que pariu!
Que aumentou o preço em abril. Vou esperar até o mês de abril, ó, aumentar o preço pra ver na mercenária aí. Pega, compra logo, pega logo. No mais, hora dessa já deve estar aparecendo aí na tela outro vídeo que se você gostou desse, você vai gostar do outro, que você tem bom gosto. E você sabe muito bem como é que eu vou terminar esse vídeo, né? Ouça a voz da alma. Gory. Porra, esse foi brabo, hein? Esse foi brabo. I think I'm a special one.
I think I'm a special one.
Very strong tonk. Meu mouse tá preso.
Quando?
Quando? Porra. Ah, velho. Foi the talking.
Alright, so for this video, I just wanted to go over some of my personal
That's weird.
experiences with the prison planet. I think it's important to sort of outline the, like a lot of the trauma, because almost like where I'm coming from in terms of the prison planet stuff, because I think that some of my videos might come off as like, oh, I'm sheltered and I just want to hide from the world or whatever, but I've actually like, gone through a lot of shit, you know, and I think that, you know, this might make for, you know, a good New Year's Eve video, or not a New Year's Eve video, but like a
New Year's.
sort of looking back, right?
New Year's.
Right. So to sort of start off, like I want to go, I want to do this in chronological order, right? So to start off, I think well, one of the biggest things about like you know, like elementary school was I remember I was like quote unquote best friends with this guy who was like a psycho, man. Like I think he had like you know, like I don't think his home life was that great. I think he was like his parents were divorced, but this was like my first encounter with like a narcissist was in elementary school, because like this guy was, I mean, he was a psycho. Like he knew how to like emotionally manipulate and like cry in order to get what he wanted, right? And like the biggest things that I remember, right? And throughout this video I might start, you know, remembering details, because I don't really look back on this stuff, because, you know, I just, you know, I want to move forward. I want to, you know, not, you know, live in the past, you know. But one of the things that I do remember is I remember, you know, the sleepovers with this guy, you know, who was like yet again, this is in elementary school, and it's crazy that, you know, this guy behaved like this, right? But like sometimes I would go over to his house, and you know, just random stuff would set this guy off, right?
Come to my
And,
house.
you know, one time I do remember that he like there was this one time we were building like a Lego set, and I think that he got mad for some reason, and he started like, I don't know if he got mad at his mom or something, right? But I think he just like it just set him off, and he started just yelling at me and throwing shit at me, and like I think we were building like a Lego spaceship or something, and he just threw the shit at my head, and he yelled at me to get out of it, to get out of my house, right? Which was like, and so yeah, I mean, I was in tears at that time, right? Like, but yeah, like this guy, like there was this other time too where like I think that he got injured and like he was on crutches or something. And I think that, you know, I was like the person assigned to like be with him to like help him up the elevator or up the stairs or whatever, right? And I think that there was this one time where he wanted like a Lego minifigure of mine, and then like we were in like recess or something, right? And I think that like there was this one time where, you know, like right? And I think one of the things that he did is that he just like fell to the ground, and he started like fake crying. And like I didn't realize it was fake at the time. Like he started fake crying with his crutches on the ground. He's like, "You won't give me the Lego set," and he was like all crying and shit like that. Like, "You're not my friend. You won't get." And he was just sitting there. Like the rest of the class had already gone back to class. Like the rest of the people already went back to class. And he stood there, and back to class. And he stood there for. And then as soon as like I'm joking, fine. As soon as I gave it to him, he was like, "Oh, okay, let's go back to class." Right, which like, so that was my first encounter with like a narcissistic soul or a narcissistic person. Was, you know, in elementary school. And yet again, I remember a couple of sleepovers where so that was pretty bad. But I think middle school is where I encountered like the most traumatic shit, because I remember you know, going to the like whenever I went to middle school, like okay, the first week there there were a bunch of like these high school age kids that like picked me up by all four limbs. Like they picked me, like there was like these four guys who were like they were like high school freshman age, but they were stuck in 6th grade because they skipped classes, right? And like they picked me up by like my arms and legs, and like they tossed me to the ground, and they stole my fucking shit. Like the first week there, like, you can't make this shit up, right? And I remember from that period of my life, I do remember being, you know, the cortisol levels were elevated big time. Like, every time I would get off the bus, my stress levels would rise, because like I didn't know if I was going to be targeted that day. I didn't know if like, and there would be, you know, a group of kids blocking the stairwell. They were like, "Who the fuck you with?" Like, what you looking at? Like, about like, eye contact, right? Is I remember I would constantly look at the ground because like the biggest offense that you can make is to look at is to make eye contact. Like, because I remember there would be some times where I would just randomly glance at people, or I would just like look around. I would be at eye level. I'd look around and like one of these people. So some of these people would just be like they would take eye contact as a sign of aggression, and so that was not fun. Right, so there was a lot of, like you can't make eye contact with anyone, you can't make like the wrong moves on any, like you go to like the wrong stairwell or something. Like, I remember many times where I was trying to go to class, I was trying to go to, like my next period of class or whatever, right, and I would have to take the long way around, and sometimes I'd be late because there'd be like a group of kids blocking the stairwell trying to steal some shit, or trying to, target people like, oh man, this is our stairwell, nigga. Right, and it was a mostly black middle school.
American school sounds like
shit. A lot of the stereotypes
Holy
about black
shit.
people are true. Okay, I'm sorry if that offends people, but that's my experience. In this school in particular, but and yeah, like in this school, like I experienced a lot of shit. Like I remember like going to gym class, and they didn't really give a shit. They would just like most of the gym classes would be like us walking around in circles. You're just walking around in circles, and that would be quote unquote exercise, right? And I remember being targeted by like this group of kids that would they would constantly hurl verbal abuse at me, and they would follow me around, and they would throw shit at my head, right? And I remember like this in particular, what they would do is they would punt basketballs and dodgeballs at my head, and I remember like there would be a couple of times where where they would essentially like get me into a corner, and they would just gang up on me, and they would just keep throwing basketballs on my head, and I would sit there like a fetal position trying to protect my head in like the corner of the gym, and of course the teachers never gave a shit. Of course the teachers don't give a shit, right? But one of the things about like school bullying that's kind of like disconcerting is like the fact that if you try to tell teachers about bullying, if you try to tell your parents about bullying, right, the kids will just bully you more because you'll be known as the snitch. Right, you'll be known as the snitch. You'll be known as he tattletaled or whatever. So it just makes it worse, which is unfortunate, right? But I did experience a lot of that in school, right? And I think a lot of these kids, it's kind of interesting how like whenever you have people who are like bully people or just target people for fun, right? That, like these people are psycho, like kids can be psychos, man. But like these people are also now that I have a sort of like a spiritual lens behind this, I think that there may be entities that might be behind this kind of activity, just just in general throughout schools. I think that a lot of the bullying, a lot of like the environments that create bullying. I think schools are one of the major loose generators on this planet, especially because childhood trauma is one of the more powerful loose generators, right? This is why the canal targets children. This is why like they torture toddlers to death in these satanic rituals, right? Is because it generates a more potent form of loose, right? But I also remember another instance where like there would be like this group of girls in my science class that would just like tease me and make fun of me for no reason. I remember like this one particular instance. I think I was fucking with like a rubber band or something, and I remember I accidentally shot it off to like the floor or something like that, and it passed by like this girl that like just didn't like me for some reason. She just hated me. She didn't like me. She would just constantly just like try to make life difficult. For me, like if we had to get into a group to work on assignments, she would like deliberately not cooperate in order to make life harder for me, or like make it harder for me to complete whatever assignment or whatever. But this girl, what she did is she faked, she covered her eye and she pretended like I shot her in the eye with a rubber band, which I didn't like, and like the rubber band, like it flew off like to the distance to where like nobody was. And it was just completely accidental. Like it flew off into the distance and nobody was. But she pretended that I shot her in the eye, and then like the teachers, like oh my gosh, the fucking teachers, man. Like the teacher, like this guy, the science teacher. I don't know what it is about male science teachers that like they tend to be like the most aggressive, narcissistic ones for some reason. But this guy just like set it off with like, oh, you can't do that in class. He just like yelled at me until I started like crying my eyes out. And I think then like of course like he turned back around, and I think like what I did is like I flipped him off behind his back because I was just fucking I was like crying inside my arms or whatever, and the entire class was laughing at me too, or whatever, and like the class was like, ooh, like he did the middle thing, and then like he came back and he just like doubled down. He's like, did you flip me off? Did you flip me off? It's fucking crazy, man. Like the teachers are like the worst people ever. People who say like, oh, teachers are they're like real life superheroes. Where like, no, teachers fucking suck, man. Like the reason why like a lot of the teachers, and I feel like the hiring process for teachers is very like backwards. Like the only teachers that I've encountered, you know, and there are a couple of good teachers. Like I can count the amount of good teachers I've had with like one hand, to be honest. Because the majority
Me
of
too.
teachers, like it's like they really hate kids, or they really love kids, right? Like you have like those are the only two, you know, people that seem to pass the interview process to become a fucking teacher, man. Because I think that some of that might be on purpose. Because I mean, like a lot of these teachers, man, they just hate these kids. Like I think that I feel like a lot of teachers they're teachers because they have to, not because they want to, and they just take out all their anger onto the kids, right? And so I think that But yeah, like that, and I got suspended for that incident. I got suspended for a false accusation. You know, got laughed at by the entire class. All the teachers yelling at me. And of course, when I went to the principal's office, there was this guy that had like this sort of like a deadpan stare, and he's like, you know, like interrogating me like I'm a fucking terrorist. Yeah, that was just super fucking. That was just not fun, you know. And a lot of times, and I remember this too, like whenever it comes to like adults yelling at you when you're a kid, or whenever it comes to like, I remember this a lot with like my parents as well, which is, and some of you might be able to relate to this, but I remember getting an adrenaline rush a lot of times, and if my dad was like lecturing me or yelling at me for something and I was super scared, I would I would get that tunnel, like the tunnel vision shit is real. Like I remember like sometimes whenever like the teacher would yell at me, or whenever like the parent would yell at me, like their head would shrink in size, like I would look at them and like their head would get smaller, and like the whatever they were saying would get like the sound would get muffled, right? And so like I have had that experience with like adrenaline rush of you know, just like people like yelling, just people yelling at you when you're a kid, and like that is like a real experience, like that tunnel vision shit where it's like you're just like staring with like your eyes just like wide open. And you're sort of in like a paralysis because like you're afraid of like moving, you're afraid of saying anything because like they're just like laying into you, right? And so I do remember like that tunnel vision, the whole like muffled sound, and like yeah, but like that was kind of like you know, dog shit, right? But and I do remember like my parents are more chill nowadays, but I think I do remember my parents were much more irritable, and they would stuff would set them off much easier back in the day. And I do remember, you know, being stressed. Like anytime my parents would be mad about something, I'd be stressed out because I'm like, oh, okay, does this affect me? Am I gonna get spanked or whatever? Because they just happened to be mad, you know, a certain day or whatever. Like, and they would like, you know, sometimes, you know, like, they would just like pull out the 2x4 and they would like. And one of the fucked up things about like the whole spanking stuff, right? There might be some people that say like, oh, spanking's necessary or whatever, but they would spank me and my sister over just like the stupidest shit, man. And I remember like one time, one time I think me and my sister like you know, did like a quote unquote like prank on my mom or whatever, where it's like I don't remember exactly what we did to like set her off or whatever, but I think like she got like super fucking mad, and she was like yelling to the point where like we could hear her across like the entire house, and I remember hiding under my bed. Right, and yet again, like the details of like all these memories are not exactly intact. I think I've repressed a lot of it, but I do remember like hiding under my bed and her telling me like, get out of there, get out from under there. Right, and the fucked up thing about like the spankings, like they'll say like, oh, it hurts me just as much as it hurts you, or it hurts me more than it hurts you. And one of the biggest fucked up things about this is like after they hit you or whatever, they would force you to hide afterwards. Like that is some crazy, that is some crazy shit. Like, I don't understand. It's one thing to hit your child and it's stupid shit, but it's a completely different thing to be force you to hide. I want you to know, and like why do you think you're fucking that is not cool. vision thing is a very distinct thing that I remember about most of my, you know, traumatic experiences with like school or parents. Because yet again, it's like you're stuck in a paralysis. It's almost like you're like a deer in headlights or something, where it's like you're stuck in paralysis. You can't move. You're just like staring at them. Like their head gets smaller, and like it feels like they're farther away than they really are, and you're afraid of like moving your eyes or whatever. So you're just like, and yet again, like the muffled sound is kind of interesting, where there's like you just see their face yelling at you, and you don't really hear the words that they're saying necessarily because of the adrenaline rush, which is like that is super weird to me. But you know, moving on to I think like the 8th grade, I think I transferred schools from that one school where I encountered a lot of the bullies to another school, and this is the period of time where I think I remember I was sort of loosed the most. Looking back on it, like I didn't really have any metaphysical experiences at that time, but I did have like a really big depression during like 8th grade, because I think that it was like a lot of the traumas that I accumulated. It was that combined with like I was starting to research a lot of like conspiracy shit. I was starting to look into like the realities of the prison planet, right? And I think the first thing I started researching when I was like 13, 14 was like the similarities between prison and school, and like the big three after that were I think, you know, the banking system, like central banking, big pharma, and MK Ultra. And so I learned about that, right? And so that was shocking to me, researching, you know, CIA torture methods as a 13-year-old. I don't think that's necessarily healthy, right? And then also, I think that this is one of the ways that you can sort of drive yourself crazy as a truther is, you know, like you're thinking about like all the negative stuff that happens in the world that you can't control. I think that was one of the things that I did, is like, you know, there's people being trafficked right now. Oh my God, I would depress myself, but it was also like the traumas that I experienced previously that accumulated into, you know, like self-pity, self-hatred, depression, right? And looking back on this period of my life, it's kind of interesting how like anytime you get thoughts of like self-deprecation, self-hatred, self-pity, oh poor, like you're playing like a tiny violin for yourself, I don't think that that's you. I think that you know, there are entities in the astral that are just that are amplifying your negative thought patterns. And so I had to move on from that, and I have done a lot of work over the years of trying to discipline my inner monologue. I don't have those thoughts anymore. I don't have the thoughts of, oh, I'm so stupid, oh, the world would be better off without me, right? Like those kinds of thoughts. My head was full of those thoughts during this period of my life, and I think that I know what it's like to be in the energy of trauma, so I know what it's like to be loosed. I think, and it feels like the inner monologue that's like the voice inside your head that's telling you all these negative things about you. It's not. It feels like another voice, which, you know, yet again, looking back on like the whole, you know, telepathic entities trying to loose you, I think that's what it was. I do think that I did experience that in my childhood, like the whole like the world would be better off without me. Oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. Oh my gosh, yeah, everyone hates me. Like that kind of mentality. Like my head was full of that stuff, and it felt like there was another voice. Like it wasn't my voice, but it was also my voice. Which is, like, there was like another voice inside my head that was telling me all this stuff, and I do think that is entity, you know, activity going on there. Right.
Damn.
So I think that yeah, I did experience that, and I think there was this other, you know, event, like major event, you know, just like in the summer before my freshman year in high school. One of the things that happened was because of the fact that I started getting into, you know, conspiracy stuff, I started to question Christianity, which is my parents' religion. Okay, so I started to question, you know, and obviously, like, I'm spiritual now. I have, you know, schizo spiritual beliefs now, but I think that every schizo spiritual person goes through an atheist phase. Okay, so I was starting to question religion. I'm starting to question, you know, like, okay, like, why do we have to worship a god that demands you cut off your foreskin? Why do we have to, you know, worship a god that, you know, genocides people whenever he feels like it? And it eventually got to a point where, like, I basically told my mom that I was atheist, which, you know, yet again, I'm not anymore, but I remember, like, I told my mom, like, hey, I don't really believe in God because, you know, I started, like, I was very much, like, in the mindset of, like, a Redditor, where it's like, oh, but, like, science disproves God, right? But yet again, I think that every smart person goes through a phase where they
We
question
know
religion.
each other
So I
for
basically,
so
I told her, like, oh,
long.
I don't really believe, like, I don't see a reason to believe in, you know, God or whatever, right? So, and then, like, she turned into, like, my mom turned into, like, Sarah the woman. she was like you need to go back to your room and you need to pray to God for forgiveness. You need to pray to Jesus for salvation, right? And so like,
What?
Okay, Mom. And then so like I went back to my room, and obviously I didn't listen. I think I was on my laptop or something, and I think that she like barged into my room and was like, hey. And she like took my laptop, and like, you're not getting this back until you pray to Jesus for salvation or whatever. Like, she became like this hysterical woman. But so that happened, and I think that like I was like, so obviously I was like in tears. I was like, oh my fucking God, man, like, my life is ruined. Whenever Dad gets home, everything's gonna fall apart, And so after that happened, I think I was in the driveway, contemplating, just like, like running away or whatever. I think I was, and so like I think like one of the things that I remember is that like my dad came home from work or whatever, and he's like, oh, what's going on, right? And I remember, just being like, oh, I got into an argument with Mom, like, please don't be mad or whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, I promise I won't be mad or whatever. And then I remember he hugged me, and he's like, oh, okay, it's okay, it's gonna be alright. And then they proceeded to, and then after like my dad met with my mom, and she like told what happened. Like, after my dad hugged me, right? Later, like, I can't remember the words that they said. I just remember crying my eyes out. I remember like most of the time I had this tunnel vision. Again, with both of my heads. I was crying my eyes out. So whenever they started yelling at me, it was the sun was up, and whenever they stopped, the sun was down. So like, so it was. Yeah, that was a crazy evening, and like for like a week after that, I just cried myself to sleep. And one of the things about like crying that's interesting is that if you're really like crying like to like an extreme degree, you do eventually get to the point where I cried until I couldn't cry my eyes out. I physically cried until I couldn't anymore. Where it's like you wake up the next day and like it's physically impossible. Like I don't know if it is like your tear ducts or if it's something else. But that is one of the things that I do remember about like that particular incident. And I think that my mom, she quote unquote apologized. Like 3 or 4 days later. And I think like what happened was like I was hiding in like the workshop. Or like whenever I got home from work, and eventually she found me in the workshop, and she's like, hey, I want to talk to you or whatever. And so we talked, and she said like, oh, okay, like and she sort of like quote unquote apologized, but she did it in a way that was like super it was like super like I remember she said something like, oh, like we don't need to lead you to Jesus. Jesus will lead you to him himself, or like God will show himself to you in time. Right, like which is, so it was like a fake apology, and then yet again she forced me to hug her to accept her quote unquote apology. Right, which yet again like hurting someone and then forcing them to hug you, that's a crazy, like that sounds like an MK Ultra thing to me. That sounds like a crazy thing to me. I really don't feel comfortable with that. And I think that combined with like the bullying stuff that I experienced in school, I think that kind of stuff, it might be the reason why like I don't really like physical contact. I don't really like hugs. I don't really like being like having people's hands on my shoulder. Like that makes me feel uncomfortable. Right? I think that like whenever it comes to like high school, I think high school is actually very it was actually not as bad as like the stuff I said previously. I think that because of the previous traumas that I had, I remember just being like a giant ball of anger in high school. And yet again, like the like just like I talked about in the previous video, like one of the things that I did is I sort of identified with the bad things that happened to me. I made it a part of my identity. I made it a part of my story. Like, oh, this is who I am. Right, and so I remember just being angry at the world. I remember being angry at teachers.
It's just me against the world, baby.
Teachers spurred out on me. I remember like this one time, my physics teacher. There was this one time where I think he was giving a lecture or whatever, and I was looking at like my worksheet or whatever. And I remember he sort of like clapped his hands at me. He's like, hey, pay attention. I'm the teacher here, right? And this guy, man, he was a sort of a bug-eyed guy like the typical soy jack guy. Like this guy, like I'm not even kidding. Like this guy looked like a bug-eyed, like he was balding, he was bug-eyed, and like I'm not making this up. He talked about his Nintendo Switch a lot. He talked about Nintendo a lot. And so so he was like that kind of guy. Was like, you better pay attention to me. I'm the teacher. And I think like what I think I mocked him for his clapping gesture, or I sort of jabbed at him for the clapping gesture or whatever. And I think that after class he was like, hey, you need like you're in an AP class, and I was like this class was like a grade ahead of what I was at. So I think he was like, hey, when you're in my class, you pay attention to me. Whenever I'm trying to get your attention, you pay attention to me, okay? You're a grown up. Start acting like it, right? And like he just like sort of spurred out and like just laid into me, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, right? And so I got really mad, and I remember punching a lot of like walls, punching not drywall, but just punching a lot of walls. I remember during that time, like in high school. And I went down to like the restroom and I punched the restroom wall or whatever, right? But one of the interesting things about like the whole punching lore, is that I actually have like in my right hand, like the knuckle that's connected to my middle finger. Anytime I punch something with it, it gets swollen. Because I remember one time I think I got into like an argument with my parents or something.
Not the bees! Not the bees!
My parents or whatever. And I think I punched a dresser, and I dislocated my middle knuckle. I had to backhand it in order to knock the knuckle back into place, which was super weird. So yeah, now I have this, this spot in my knuckle, the middle knuckle. Then the knuckle that's connected to the middle finger on my right hand, it swells up anytime I punch something. So those were not fun times. And I think after I got out of school, things got better. And most of it was just like work-related drama, like work-related stuff. But I don't think none of the stuff that I've experienced at work was as it was like trauma, like just like a big trauma necessarily. I think that work is just annoying. Going to having to deal with like rumors and coworkers that deal with that make up rumors about you or talk behind your back or whatever, and like managers that micromanage you. But like none of that stuff is as traumatizing as like all of the stuff that I experienced in school. And I think that like speaking of just school in general, if we're talking about school in general, I remember like on top of all the bullying and all the being yelled at by teachers and parents or whatever, I remember being sleep deprived. I remember not having enough to eat because I couldn't pack it fast enough in the morning. I remember being sleep deprived because of the fact that I had so much homework to do that I couldn't get a proper sleep. Especially for teenagers, they don't need 8 hours of sleep. They need like 10 to 12 hours of sleep. So sleep depriving teenagers in their developmental years is fucking that's a psychotic thing to do to a child, man. I think that I do remember being sleep deprived. I remember being I don't want to like having headaches. Being malnourished because I didn't eat enough. I remember like the school water fountains, like the water fountains had water that tasted like metal, and so that would just make my head hurt even more. I think like in school, like there's like a fluoride mixing center at the school. I think school water fountains had extra fluoride in them, right? But yeah, I do remember a lot of that from school, just like
fuck you,
like being yelled at by teachers for being sleep deprived in the morning. He's like, you need to pay attention. Like, I'm the teacher, you need to pay attention, right? Because I'm the teacher, and you need to wake up. Even though like I got fucking 5 or 6 hours of sleep because I was working with dumb homework tackles, But yeah, like I think that pretty much explains like the majority of like the big trauma, so like the big experiences that I've had with this prison planning. Because and yet again, like a lot of that stuff, like I've been through shit, and I know that there are people that have been through more. And this is why like I don't like to toot my horn whenever I talk about like the prison planning. I don't like to say, oh, this is bad stuff. I don't like to do that.
I'm burning.
I know that there's organ harvesting. I know that there's
fire. Cause I'm burning low.
To sort of realize,
I'm burning.
I think this is like sort of where I'm coming from. in terms of like, why do I think this world's a prison planet, right? Because I don't think there really is a time in my life necessarily where like I don't like if let's put it this way: if the human life was a video game, I'd want my money back, because I don't think that. Here's like like as of right now, I'm doing better now. Obviously, like I'm doing way better now. I have
Showing you pink
I have,
joke.
you know,
Better up
sort of abilities. I have worked on
alone.
traumas. I have worked on, yet again, like removing the identity with trauma. I think is a really important thing. Not making it like, like the bad stuff that happens to you. That's not who you are. You don't have to identify with it. And I think that it does take time to sort of heal those traumas, to work through it, and to yet again remove the whole like the self-pity, self-hatred, the inner monologue stuff that is just amplifying negative thoughts. It's giving you more of an ability for these entities to sort of loose you. So I have disciplined my inner monologue to stop it. Anytime I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. Like I never say that type of stuff to myself anymore. I have programmed that out of my system. For sure. But I think that like that is definitely.
You're in my system, got me burning, baby. Oh, you are. You're in my system, system. Yeah, you
there are people
are
on top of all the stuff that I've experienced, there's
my
people that haven't had worse than me.
system.
And that's why I like to that's why I list extreme examples like like people getting brain cancer, people being born with alopecia. So I actually meant to say cerebral palsy.
Motherfucker, you fucking motherfucker thinking for with me, motherfucker.
Like I'm not talking about hair loss, I'm talking about like paralysis.
Fuck you, motherfucker. Gonna eat you.
But yeah.
Gonna eat you. Gonna eat you.
Like I know that there's people that have it worse than me, and I feel like I'm sort of angry on those people's behalf, I guess, because it's just terrible that this is the way things are on this planet.
Motherfucker, who the fuck you think you are, motherfucker? Fuck you, motherfucker.
Video because it does sort of like outline like where I'm coming from in terms of like like why I think that this earth is a prison, and why I don't think that this place is necessarily for learning lessons in space. I think that a lot of the stuff that I've done in my life has been despite the trauma. It hasn't been because like the trauma helped me grow. Like I think the trauma held me back in a lot of ways, and I think that I have to spend more time working through it. In order to get where I am now, and I think that I'm still working on it, right? Because I think that even just talking about looking back on it, I do feel sort of like whenever I was talking about like my experiences with bullying earlier, I think that my body started sort of shaking a little bit, so I still do have a little bit of sort of embodied trauma inside me, but I think that it's important to work through it. It's important to remove yourself from identifying with it, but it's also, I think that a lot of people might say that, oh, like a lot of the I've heard this a lot from new agers who come onto my channel and they hear me talk about the prison plan, and they say, oh, you're so sheltered, you've never experienced actual traumas in your life or whatever. Right, but that's just not true. Like I know the stuff that I've gone through, I know the stuff that I've experienced, and I know that there's people that have it worse than me. And I'm not gonna excuse that by saying that it's all love and light. That's bullshit, man. Right, and I would say that the people who are like, this is why like, the majority of new agers are privileged people. Like of course, if you've never experienced any actual traumas in your life, of course you're gonna say, oh, suffering helps you grow. If you're a rich liberal woman. Boomer woman, because it's usually rich liberal women that get into the new age. I know and usually it's emasculated men too. Like a lot of the men in the new age are very feminized, right? But I think that's a digression. But the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of the people who sort of have a hand wavy attitude towards the stuff that happens on this planet don't know what they're talking about. I would argue that the people who write off the suffering in this realm, they're doing it from a place of privilege. They're doing it from a place of being sheltered and not having experienced the real world. It sort of reminds me of, like whenever Kim Kardashian is like, oh, you have to, people have to get off their ass and they need to work hard. Like Kim Kardashian's talking about hard work. That's how you know that they're coming from a place of privilege, that they have no idea what they're talking about. And I think the new age people who
Wiggy, fuck you.
You haven't seen the lesson yet.
Who the fuck's Kim Kardashian? I don't know.
The people who have a hand wavy attitude to your traumas, the people who have a hand wavy attitude to the things that happen on this planet. I think that a
I
lot
like
of
this
those
sound.
people are extremely sheltered and extremely ignorant to what actual suffering is and to like the magnitude of suffering that people experience. And I think that yet again, like I do have empathy for people who have it worse than me. I think that yet again, I don't like to talk about like usually. I mean, like this video is about like my experiences, obviously, but whenever I talk about the prison planet, I don't like to talk about this thing happened to me and this thing happened to me because I like to talk about the stuff that happens to all of us, how it affects everyone, because it affects all of us. We're all on the same side against this malevolent system, right? But that's sort of I guess like a trauma dump. I guess this is sort of like an outline of the like sort of where I'm coming from, the mentality of where I'm coming from in terms of like why do I believe the prison planet. I think this is a really good New Year's Eve or sort of like a New Year's video because I'm looking back. I'm looking back on my life. I'm looking back in time. But yeah, those are my experiences, and that's the video.
Cool. Another one.
Most people on this planet are addicted to suffering. Most people on this planet are people who romanticize suffering inside of their own heads, and it drives me crazy how how much misery porn there is in fiction in particular, but also like in religion, right? Like a lot of like the martyrs, a lot of the so-called messiahs and saviors. Like the suffering is hard baked into the stories of like people achieving enlightenment or people saving humanity, or like martyrs and saints like getting like flayed alive or getting like skinned and all this other stuff, right? Like that is something that seems to be in religions and also in the stories that are told in movies, in TV shows and in books, that like suffering is romanticized a lot, and the battle for the soul of humanity is fought on the realm of ideas. It's fought in the realm of like which ideas, which assumptions, right? What stuff we assume to be true about reality, right? And so a lot of, and I particularly see this in movies a lot, right? It makes me think of like how the main character in a lot of movies is just never allowed to be happy, right? Like, as soon as like they're achieving like a happy ending, it's almost like the writers find some way to like snatch their happiness away from them. It's like Batman's never happy, right? So and of course like Spider-Man, right? I mean I don't like talking about cape shit stuff, but this is an excellent example of what I'm talking about in terms of like people romanticizing suffering, right? Like Peter Parker goes through like 1,000 trials and tribulations in the comics, right? And
Yeah, but Peter Parker's not real.
Right, where it's like the main character Denji is like never allowed to be happy. He's never like as soon as he's about to get into a relationship, with Reze or whatever, right? Like the main like her oh my god, I'm sorry, but like his love interest dies or whatever. I'm sorry for stuttering. That was a crazy stutter, but yeah, like it just makes me think about like how basically like the suffering of the main character in a lot of stories is romanticized. It's essentially put on a pedestal as something that is like virtually it's virtuous to be a victim. It's virtuous to be a martyr. It's like it's virtuous to go through trials and tribulations and to make yourself miserable because like I'm doing it for the city or whatever. Like and so like it's like I'm doing it for Gotham or whatever, right? And one of the things that I've also never understood about people is how people will essentially, like people will go out of their way to watch movies to make themselves sad, right? Like I've never understood that at all. Like this is something that my sister does, and she's talked about this. How she'll watch movies that are sad on purpose in order to make herself cry for no, and like that to me that is loose cattle behavior. That is prime. Loop generating material right there. If you have a person who's like they're so bored in the silence, they're so bored in sitting in peace and quiet, sitting in silence, sitting with their thoughts, right? We're doing in peace. Like it's almost like people do it out of boredom. There's people that it's like they go out of their way to make themselves mad. Like they go out of the it's like people who go on
You
Twitch
out
or
of
like
your
people who
mind, you're
watch
insane.
videos or whatever to just deliberately make themselves angry, to deliberately make themselves sad, to deliberately make themselves and it's such yet again it's such loose cattle behavior. Like these people are generating negative energy all the time. Right? These people are generating negative emotional energy for the archons to feed off of all of the damn time. Okay, and so this is something that's never made sense to me. Is like that there's certain groups of people that seem to be, addicted to suffering. They're addicted to negative emotion as almost like a sort of drug or something. It's like yet again, it's like they can't sit in the silence, they can't sit in the peace and quiet, and like they constantly romanticize like the suffering of the main character in stories. And yet again, like why am I talking about anime and like cape shit stuff? Right? Is that the stories that people are told influences like the preconceived ideas that like the collective mind of humanity holds, right? And this is why they control Hollywood. This is why they control I mean, people don't read books as much anymore, but this is why they control the movies. This is why they control the TV shows. This is why they control like the streaming services. Is they want to control the preconceived notions of reality that people have inside their heads. And one of these things is like romanticizing suffering, right? Like, oh, like suffering makes you beautiful. Diamonds are built under pressure, right? Like that's what people will say. Or like anytime you bring up like, oh, okay, like why are there like all these trials and tribulations that people go through, like that people have gone through for thousands of years, that we've gone through for thousands of years as a species. Like why are there still famines and disease and wars and like kids being diddled on Epstein's island? Like why is all that stuff there? Oh, diamonds are built under pressure. You see like suffering makes you beautiful, right? And people say, and a lot of like the phrases that people say, a lot of the phrases that people you know have in sort of
Copy
their
and
vernacular
paste.
are sort of things that we need to question. Like people say no pain no gain.
Copy
People say
and
love
paste,
hurts. People say
fellas.
too good to be true, right? Like we're like this idea that what goes up must come down, right? These are all ideas that are hard baked into the stories that are told to people, right? And yet again, people on this planet seem to be addicted to suffering. They seem to be addicted to this sort of loose generating behavior where they deliberately go out of their way to make themselves feel negative emotions just out of pure boredom. Yeah, and yet again, this is something that I've never understood. I've never understood why someone would go out of their way to watch a story to like watch a movie or TV show or to read a story that deliberately makes themselves to like deliberately make themselves depressed. And they say, oh my gosh, it was peak. It's such a good story. Like why? Because it generated strong emotion. Why? Because it made you depressed after. Oh my god, that was such a good story. It made me so sad. I've never understood that. Okay, like it's okay. It's okay to have peace and quiet. You don't need constant ups and downs and like a constant extreme emotions all the damn time. And I think that like people who go out of their way to partake in this sort of loose generating behavior into this sort of generating negative emotion, right? Are just like they're in that state of mind where like they're in the perfect mentality to generate loose. They're in the perfect. Yet again, these people are loose cattle, right? And it makes me think of like movie theaters, and here's the thing: I don't go to movie theaters. I don't go to like. It makes me think of like sports stadiums. Also, like these are energy harvesting centers. Anytime you go to arenas, anytime you go to sports centers, anytime you go to movie theaters, it makes me think of like
Sports
people who watch horror
dying.
movies to like scare themselves too.
Sports
Like
diet
people who do that also like that's
after
also another
the
loose generating behavior,
Olympics.
like watching stuff to like make yourself
Have a
scared.
good night.
Because fear generates loose as well, right? So going to the movies to watch like The Conjuring or whatever, right? To deliberately make yourself scared, but that is also a form of loose that is being generated by these people who are just I don't know what it is about these people that makes them addicted to this. Is like it's almost like some sort of drug to them. To go out of their way to generate extreme emotions. It's like people who like cut themselves on the wrist or something like that. Like there's something that I just don't get about those people, right? And when people say when people say like, oh man, like whenever you watch a movie, like the heartbreak feels good, or like oh my gosh, like it makes me think of there's this like skit in the beginning of like each like if you go to like AMC theaters, there's this skit where like Nicole Kidman talks about like somehow heartbreak feels good in a place like this, and I'm like no, fuck you, shut up. You shut up, Nicole
Yeah.
Kidman. You know,
Yeah.
it's stuff like, yet again, it's like romanticizing the louche, romanticizing fear, pain, suffering, trials and tribulations. The main character is never allowed to be happy because of, you know, some sense of duty that they have, or you're like, oh, you can't have it both ways, and so the writers write stuff to where like you have to make the impossible decision, right? It's stuff like that where, you know, people, and yet again, it seeps into the mentality of the collective mind of humanity, where people romanticize the suffering, people romanticize the trials and tribulations, and they add that as like the story of like who they are. They make it a part of their identity. They make suffering, they make generating louche, right? They make that a part of their identity. They make trauma a part of their identity, and it becomes a part of the story of who they are. That, you know, if you exist, you know, without constant trials and tribulations, and if you don't have, and there's people that are addicted to drama, right? And it's almost like if there's any moment of, and if there's any moment of like peace and quiet, right? It's like these people go out of their way to generate drama just out of pure boredom, right? And I think it's the same like mentality of like people who watch like My 600 Pound Life to make themselves feel better about themselves. It's just misery porn, you know. And then I'm pretty sure that if you're a person who's watching this video, I'm pretty sure you've encountered at least someone like this who, like, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Whenever you have like people who are bored to the point where like they cause drama artificially. If there's peace and quiet, if you're existing with stability, with peace, with silence, right, and you're not doing drugs, you're not doing anything to, you know, overstimulate yourself, right? Like if you're doing all of this stuff, right, like it's almost like people are allergic to the silence. You know, people are allergic
Enjoy
to,
the
you know, peace and quiet, right? So they
silence.
just go out of their way to generate drama.
No one
They do
thing,
stuff out of
no
boredom. It makes
need
people like
is
drug people who
here
partake in
in
drugs,
my arms.
right? People who partake in drugs,
Words are
people who partake
very
in
unnecessary.
like
They can
doing drugs out of
only
boredom,
do
stimulating themselves,
harm.
going to, you know, clubs, right? Like where there's all that noise. Like I can't stand stuff like clubs, stuff like stadiums. You know, so like I've never, even when I
Enjoy
was
the
like in school, I never liked
silence.
school assemblies. I never liked, you know, going to
Enjoy
the
the
cafeteria. It was too
silence.
loud. It's like I can't even hear the stuff inside my head, and like there's so much, you know, outside noise, and like the modern world is designed to distract you from the inner essence, right? With outside distractions, with breaded surfaces, right? But yeah, like this is sort of like a breaded circuses thing, right? Is it's almost like there's outside sources of noise that are designed to distract you from the inner essence. There's constant, you know, drugs, there's pornography, there's movies, there's, you know, going out to clubs and raves, or watching people throw the pigskin, right? Like, there's constant outside sources of noise that are it's sort of there to like dazzle you away from sitting on. People can't even sit alone with their thoughts. Right, and it's like people are just constantly addicted to stimulation. People are constantly addicted to, you know, and social media is another example of this outside sort of noise generator, right? And and it's, I think that it's this kind of like boredom, like where it's like people generate, you know, drama out of boredom that like maybe causes like this like romanticizing suffering, right? So where it's like as soon as there's stability, as soon as there's peace. It's like people go out of their way to, you know, make themselves sad or to make themselves angry, because I don't know. It's almost like you know, what is the meaning of life without suffering? Like, can you imagine a life without the need for suffering, without the
I
need
can.
for, you know, trials and tribulations?
It's
Like,
peace.
here's the thing. I'm not saying that, you know,
Infinite peace.
I'm not saying that challenges are bad. I'm not saying that, you know. I mean, but there's a huge chasm
You know how
between, you know,
troublesome
solving a puzzle
peace
and, you know,
is.
getting raped as a 5-year-old. I think that there's a huge chasm between the two. There's a huge chasm between that and like finding out your partner cheated on you. There's a huge chasm between, you know, oh man, I'm solving this Rubik's cube, right? Like I'm solving this Rubik's cube. Like that, there's that kind of challenge, and then there's the kind of challenge that getting, you know, fucking brain cancer presents, right? So it's stuff like that. Where, you know, like I see this in media, I see this in movies a lot, where it's like what they do is they romanticize the suffering of the main character. They kill off characters in order to make the audience sad, and to make the audience generate louche. There's like the horror movies that are deliberately there to make people scared, right? And you know, people go out of their way to generate this louche by themselves, and so I think that is something that I think is almost like an addiction that humanity has on a collective level, where they're addicted to suffering. They're addicted
You can
to
call that
emotion.
born
People go out
emotion
of their way to make
or
themselves
simply
People go out of their way to make themselves depressed. People go
entertainment.
out of their way to make themselves scared. And people go out of their way to make, and it's the same thing with like sports fans. Like people go out of their way to just rally for a sport, and then they get mad, and people get into fights at sports arenas, which is so stupid, right? But yet again, this is all
Which
cattle
is
behavior.
a
These are cattle that are milked for their loosh by these
low.
because like what they do is they romanticize
What's the name?
suffering. This is something that you see in stories a lot. This is something that you see, like the main characters never allowed to be happy because it makes the story more interesting.
Which is a low culture module.
But I don't think that should be the story of humanity. I don't think that should be a thing that we should romanticize.
Entertainment is a low
I don't think that,
culture
suffering doesn't give
module.
life meaning, right? That is bullshit. Like this idea that like suffering and stress, it gives life meaning, it gives life flavor, right? Like, notice the word flavor, right there, right? Like it's almost like the word death has eat in it, right? Like the Grim Reaper, he has like a scythe in order to harvest, a crop, right? So it's almost like that, like our negative emotional energy is being harvested, right? And so like this idea that like, oh, stress adds flavor to life, or like, okay, who's eating the food, right? Like I've said this before, right? Like the whole suffering and stress adds flavor to life. It adds a flavor to life, right? Like that I've heard that word flavor used a lot, and
Flavor.
the stress, right? Who like this idea that like stress is like a flavor. Like who's eating the food then? Who's the one doing the eating? Who's the one consuming that energy? Right, and that's where we get into the the loose generating process. But I think that we need to sort of move out of this mentality that suffering gives life meaning. I think we need to just as a collective, right, as humanity, I think we need to move away from this sort of attachment to suffering. Like we need to move away from that sort of romanticizing suffering. I think that we need to sort of contemplate and think about, okay, who are we without our trials and tribulations? Who are we without our traumas, right? Like playing a little violin.
Tribulation in the ghetto.
That you see a lot in like movies and in stories and in books and in TV shows, and just yet again all the stories that were told in by Hollywood. It romanticizes that loose generating aspect. It makes the generation of loose a part of the human story when it's not a part of us at all. It's not something that should be a part of us. We shouldn't identify with the trials and tribulations and the difficulties of life. And I don't think that we should go out of our way to sort of slit our wrists, metaphorically speaking, just because it makes it, just because we're bored, or just because like we can't see a purpose in life without some sort of trial or tribulation to go through, without some sort of negative emotion to feel, right? Like I think we need to ask ourselves, who are we beyond that? If we take that away, who are we beyond that? Like
Buddha.
Who are we in the silence? Who are we in the peace? Right? If we remove ourselves from like the outside noises, who are we without this? Right? Do you really need trials and tribulations? Do you really need suffering? Do you really need to make yourself sad and scared and angry and all this other stuff? Like, and this is something that people say in movies a lot.
It happens naturally. You don't need to make yourself.
It's like we're here to cry. We're here to laugh. We're here to be angry. We're here to be happy. And yet again, all the strong emotions, right? They're romanticizing the louche, right? So we need to return to the peace. We need to return to the neutral state, to that sort of neutral, peaceful state where we can see things clearly, instead of being like, it's what it means to be human. We're here to cry. We're here to laugh. We're here to generate louche for the archons, right? Like, yet again, that's something that you hear a lot in a lot of stories and a lot of movies, is they romanticize the louche, right? So I think we need to move away from that. We need to eject that from our minds. And to become who we are outside of the suffering, outside of the louche, right? But yeah, that's the video.
Okay.
Existe um jeito de você passar a vida inteira sem
Gozando.
nunca descobrir quem você é.
Sério?
E o pior é que você nem percebe. Você já ouviu uma antiga história islâmica sobre um homem que tá no meio da noite agachado embaixo de um poste de luz? O policial passa e pergunta pra ele o que ele tá fazendo. Ele responde que ele tá procurando as chaves que ele perdeu. O policial, meio sem nada pra fazer, ajuda ele a procurar. E eles ficam nessa por um tempo. Até que o policial fala: caramba, você tem certeza que você perdeu a chave aqui mesmo? E o homem responde: não, eu perdi lá no parque, mas é que aqui tava mais iluminado. Pensei em começar por aqui. E bom, isso é uma piada. Mas é uma piada tão boa, né? Eu aposto que você tá esbaforido de tanto gargalhar, que ela deu origem a um termo importante na psicologia: o efeito poste de luz, que se refere a uma tendência que todo mundo tem de sempre procurar por algo nos lugares onde é mais fácil de olhar. Talvez nos lugares que você já conhece. Ninguém gosta de tatear no escuro. Mas isso é um problema, porque no escuro, no desconhecido, é onde se encontram os maiores tesouros. E esse vídeo trata da busca pelo maior desses tesouros. A busca
Eu gosto
por
disso.
você, RS. O que eu quero te mostrar é que não dá pra descobrir quem você é nos lugares que você já está. É preciso ir além, é preciso fugir.
É
Ao contrário, você pode
preciso
assistir a sua
saber
vida inteira
viver.
escoar como um filme de outra pessoa, sem nunca ter percebido onde é que estava a sua própria história. Onde tá?
É mesmo?
Ela tá aqui. Ela tá diante de você. É preciso encontrá-la e pra isso você tem que se perder. Mas eu tô contigo. Me
Eu vou comprar uma
acompanha,
para ti
porque
amanhã.
tudo começa com o fato de que você é e sempre foi
E vou vender
um herói.
churros.
Se o negócio é encontrar a sua história, faz sentido a gente começar falando um pouco sobre histórias. Pra que serve? É de comer? Todos
Pra aprender
nós
coisa
somos
dos outros.
contadores de
Parece
histórias.
que a
Faz
história
parte da
serve.
nossa natureza enquanto espécie se reunir em torno da fogueira cantando kumbaya e contar causos e mais causos da nossa
Vem, filho da
vida,
puta.
da vida alheia, de vidas imaginárias.
Seu merda.
Como é que foi lá no
Lixo.
dentista?
Fica
Cheguei
lixo.
lá, tava meio cheio. Pimba!
Seu bosta.
Senta que lá vem história. Mas e o seu irmão? Ele casou mesmo, é verdade?
Não, deu a bomba.
Nossa, nem te conto, a noiva. Pimba! Senta que lá vem história. Mas e o curso, Vinícius? Você já se formou? Bom, na verdade eu acho que eu prefiro não falar sobre isso. A verdade, meu amigo, é que nós somos descendentes de um bando de fofoqueiro. Tá no nosso sangue, na nossa pele. Lamentável. Só que não, porque tem um bom motivo pra isso. Contar histórias permite que a gente compartilhe entre si conhecimento e opiniões e valores e moral. E se a gente consegue compartilhar isso, meu caro,
Na moral.
a gente consegue criar uma sociedade. Então, histórias servem pra muito mais do que passar o tempo. E investigar as histórias que nos cercam é uma forma de investigar nós mesmos. O que a gente acredita? O que a gente valoriza? O que a gente quer? E nesse contexto surge o Herói de Mil Faces, de 1949. Nele,
Herói de quê?
o mitólogo Joseph Campbell identifica que ao longo de todas as eras, todas as culturas, tem um tipo de história que é muito persistente. Sempre aparece. E esse é o mito do herói.
Ah.
A figura do herói, aquele que enfrenta o desconhecido, supera inimigos, adquire poderes e traz consigo a salvação mediante o próprio sacrifício, parece que está enraizada dentro da nossa mente. Independente do lugar, da época,
Se
da
fuder,
religião, a ideia do herói sempre volta. E pro Campbell, isso tem um motivo. Essa figura, para ele, representa a capacidade humana de transformação, de se metamorfosear
Apoteoses.
em algo maior. E nesse processo, se encontrar, se salvar. E ao se salvar, salvar o mundo. Como essa transformação acontece? É isso que você quer saber. Como encontrar o herói dentro de você. E bom, é uma longa história. Vamos focar no primeiro passo.
Fuja.
famosa jornada do herói que o Campbell identifica nesses mitos tem 3 grandes partes. A primeira delas é a separação, também conhecida como o chamado do desconhecido ou chamado da aventura, e envolve sobretudo uma ruptura com a ordem das coisas. Em outras palavras, a vida vira de cabeça para baixo, alguma coisa muda drasticamente e o herói é colocado numa nova situação. Mas isso não é inevitável. Pelo menos não costuma ser nessas histórias. O chamado do desconhecido tem que ser atendido. E o herói pode só não atender, ignorar, dar um ghost. Em Alice no País das Maravilhas, por exemplo, o chamado da aventura é um simples coelhinho branco, curiosamente vestido de smoking, que a Alice vê correndo pelo jardim. E ela fala, carambolas, isso aí é meio esquisito. E segue esse coelho até ele entrar na
Damn,
toca.
that's
E aí ela
kinda
tem uma opção
weird.
imediata com uma garotinha comportada de falar, fiz, não vou entrar numa toca escura, fedida, cheia de bicho, eu não. Vou ficar aqui no meu piquenique, com as florzinhas, onde eu conheço, onde me é familiar. Hoje não, Faro. Mas se ela fizesse isso, ela nunca conheceria o País das Maravilhas, nunca viveria a sua aventura e nunca se transformaria por meio dela. Essa recusa ao chamado é algo extremamente humano. É o caso de Jonas, na Bíblia, que recebe literalmente um chamado dos céus, dizendo para ele ir pregar numa cidade inimiga, e ele fala, pô, quer saber? Tô suave. E pega um navio na direção oposta à cidade. Tamanho o seu medo do que pode acontecer com ele naquele lugar. É só depois de passar 3 dias dentro de uma baleia, que representa uma espécie de limbo existencial, né? Um lugar entre a vida e a morte, entre o ser e o não ser, que ele aceita ser. Ele aceita o seu próprio destino. Outro exemplo clássico é o Hobbit. Quando o Gandalf aparece no começo e convida o Bilbo para uma aventura,
Ô Bilbo, bó.
dele é, e abro aspas, somos gente simples e quieta e não queremos saber de aventuras, coisas desagradáveis, perturbadoras e desconfortáveis. Fazem o sujeito se atrasar pro jantar. Que é um caso interessante, né? Porque ainda que o Bilbo sinta medo do desconhecido, a maior motivação para ele recusar parece na verdade o apego ao que ele já tem. É uma certa acomodação, o que toca num ponto crucial da questão. O primeiro passo da jornada é 2 passos em um. Você precisa vencer o medo do desconhecido e vencer o apego ao conhecido. A ruptura não é só um subproduto chato de você aceitar o chamado, um preço a se pagar. Não, ela faz parte do chamado e ela é tão importante quanto. Você vai de encontro ao desconhecido e ao mesmo tempo foge do conhecido. Por quê? Bom, por causa de como o seu cérebro funciona. Mas antes eu tenho algo muito importante para dizer, algo. Relaxa que não é propaganda, não é patrocínio da Insider.
Propaganda.
Eu fiz um canal, um novo canal, mas de certa forma não, é o mesmo
Olha
canal,
que homem
mas é a versão em
bonito,
inglês desse mesmo
nossa.
canal. Isso é algo que eu planejava fazer há um tempo, mas eu tô esperando o momento certo. E eu acho que é agora, né? Se não agora, quando? E é isso, né? Os vídeos novos daqui pra frente eu vou postar primeiro lá com uma semana de antecedência e depois aqui em português. Isso é uma forma que eu pensei de retribuir, né, o pessoal que for lá. Então se você já acompanha conteúdos em inglês,
Fui lá.
vai lá, dá uma força. Você provavelmente vai gostar se você gosta disso aqui, porque é só eu, mas em inglês. Né?
In English.
Mas se
Very
você
nice.
não consome coisas em inglês, tá
I
suave,
do.
tá tranquilo, não precisa. Continua somente aqui, muito bem-vindo. Pode entrar, pode pegar, quer um biscoito, quer um biscoitinho, e é isso. Agora volta.
Want a biscuit?
Existem 2 coisas no seu cérebro que tornam qualquer tipo de transformação bem mais difícil do que talvez deveria. A primeira é que o seu cérebro funciona de forma associativa. A primeira lei da neuroplasticidade é: neurônios que se ativam ao mesmo tempo se conectam. Quando você ouve muito uma música, as redes neurais que se ativam durante acabam se conectando com outras redes que também estão ativas. E por isso, se você volta a ouvir essa música anos depois e reativa essas redes, você reinvoca sentimentos e lembranças daquela época. A segunda é que o cérebro é completamente obcecado por poupar energia. Ele é tipo o Július da energia psíquica. Ele já gasta, em média, 20% de todas as calorias que você ingere e ele não quer passar disso de jeito nenhum. O problema
Mas
é que o
vai.
córtex pré-frontal, que está ligado à atividade consciente, né? Você conscientemente pensando e agindo, gasta muita energia. Mas, nossa. Então, para o cérebro, quanto menos tempo você passar em atividade consciente e mais tempo no piloto automático, melhor. E para isso, ele é especialista em criar pilotos automáticos, hábitos, scripts que ficam gravados principalmente na região dos núcleos da base e funcionam como se fossem arquivos comprimidos no seu PC, que ocupam bem menos espaço e gastam muito menos energia para se ativar. É assim que pensamentos e comportamentos complexos que se repetem são convertidos em scripts, em hábitos mentais que se tornam inconscientes e deixam de existir no córtex pré-frontal. Quanto é 2 mais 2?
4.
Sabe que é 4? Não adianta fazer graça.
É
Você
4.
não faz essa conta conscientemente.
Ai,
você
damn.
só roda o script. 2 mais 2, 4. Quando você levantar pra ir tomar água daqui a pouco, você não vai ficar controlando o movimento de cada músculo nas suas pernas. Não, é até estranho falar que é você que tá andando. É só o script rodando automaticamente e você tá meio que indo junto. Isso libera espaço para a consciência fazer outras coisas. Pensar nas contas, pensar naquela mensagem do WhatsApp, pensar na vida, no universo e tudo mais. Show de bola, maravilha. Só que lembra, o cérebro é o Július. Ele não quer gastar nada. Enquanto ele puder fazer script para impedir a consciência de ter que fazer qualquer coisa, ele vai fazer. Isso vai muito além da coordenação motora e de aprender matemática. Ele vai criar scripts para o que você pensa, para o que você sente, para como você vê a si mesmo, vê o mundo, para o jeito que você fala, age, para suas personalidades. Dá para dizer que é assim que se forma uma personalidade, um conjunto de scripts que o seu cérebro assimilou. E como ele funciona por associação, quando você vê o 2 mais 2, ele já roda o script e fala 4. E quando você tá
4.
no mesmo lugar que você tantas vezes já teve, fazendo a mesma coisa, do mesmo jeito que tantas vezes já fez, e tantas vezes já se sentiu assim, pensou assim, ele também vai rodar esses scripts automaticamente. É assim que você fica preso no passado. O cérebro automatiza o máximo de coisas que ele consegue. E enquanto você estiver sobrevivendo, comendo e não correndo nenhum risco claro de vida, ele entende que tá tudo bem e que não há motivo para fazer coisas diferentes, para mudar.
Mas não está, seu
Mudar
desgraçado.
gasta
Sociedade
energia.
moderna, sociedade moderna.
Mas meu Deus, sem mudar não dá para crescer, não dá para construir o seu próprio caminho e descobrir quem você é. Para fazer essas coisas, só tem um jeito.
Only one way street.
Tem uma passagem que aparece mais de uma vez nos textos budistas que eu acho muito poderosa. Uma delas é no Sutta Mahasachaka, quando o Buda está explicando sobre o que levou ele a abandonar a vida no palácio e começar a sua jornada em busca da iluminação. Ele diz: antes do meu despertar, eu já pensava que a vida doméstica é um lugar estreito e empoeirado. A vida de renúncia é aberta como o ar livre. Algum tempo depois, ainda que meus pais desejassem o contrário e lágrimas escorressem nos seus rostos, eu raspei meu cabelo e minha barba, me vesti como monge e dei início à minha vida de nômade. A vida doméstica, a sua casa, é um lugar estreito, apertado, onde não existem muitos caminhos possíveis. As paredes já foram erguidas, os caminhos estão fechados. Mas fora de casa, o ar circula livremente e os caminhos se ofertam por todos os lados. Eu tô falando em termos simbólicos aqui. Eu não tô dizendo que você precisa juntar suas trouxas e literalmente fugir de casa amanhã cedo. A casa aqui simboliza o familiar. E isso vai muito além da sua localização geográfica. Você talvez já tenha ouvido falar dos estudos que mostram que pessoas bilíngues exibem diferentes personalidades a depender do idioma. E nada faz mais sentido. O cérebro funciona por associação, e os scripts que definem aquela personalidade estão associados àquela língua. Falar uma língua nova é um dos jeitos de fugir de casa. Vestir roupas diferentes das que você costuma usar, mudar o seu cabelo, redecorar os lugares que você fica, fazer outra coisa no seu tempo livre, falar com outras pessoas, mudar de rota na hora de ir pra casa, mudar alguma coisa.
Abujanro.
E mudar,
Abujanjou.
não no sentido de mudar pra algo melhor,
Abujan...
mudar o cabelo
Ah,
pra
foda-se,
ficar
não sei.
mais bonito, fazer isso porque é melhor. Não, como se tivesse algo errado no jeito que as coisas já são. Não tem. Eu quero que você busque a diferença em nome da diferença, sem julgamento. Ultimamente eu tô me forçando a usar o garfo da mão esquerda pra comer. Mas eu não me importo com as regras de etiqueta, eu nunca me importei. Eu tô fazendo isso pra mim. Quando eu faço isso, eu sinto a minha mente se aquietar, parece mágica, à medida que a consciência reassume o controle. E é divertido. É um desafio que exige que eu me torne algo novo, enquanto meu cérebro grita
Usa a mão
no fundo
direita.
pra eu usar a mão direita, pra eu voltar pro familiar. Mas eu não volto.
Usa a mão esquerda.
Eu fujo. Fugir é se colocar numa posição em que o cérebro não tem escolha a não ser interromper esse
sim.
monte de scripts que você acha que é você e ceder o controle para a consciência que é e sempre foi livre para criar, para viver, trazer à tona partes de você que jazem dormentes, preciosas pedras brilhantes, escondidas nas profundezas da sua alma. No Herói de Mil Faces, o Campbell diz que o herói tem fome de ser. Fome de ser. E por isso, cedo ou tarde, ele
E de
sempre
B.
vai
Não tem,
responder
não?
ao chamado. Porque no fundo, ele sente dentro de si essa chama que clama por existir. Existe dentro de cada um de nós essa promessa de que há algo mais. Há algo além a ser revelado. Se você permitir, se você tiver coragem de renunciar à sua casa e subir aquela montanha desconhecida, o que você vai finalmente encontrar lá no topo é o maior de todos os tesouros.
Os amigos que fizemos pelo caminho.
Foid is a derogatory
Foid?
slang term used within incel communities as a shortened form of femoid, which is a combination of
Femoid.
words female and humanoid, or female and
Humid.
android. I'm not gonna lie, when I hear the term foid, I usually
Foid.
think of, like, one of
What
the
is this
Star Wars
foid
droids
talking
with, like, a
about?
blonde wig on and makeup. But today we're gonna be talking about foids who voice their weird, terrible opinion on the internet. And when I say foids, I'm not talking about like just any woman, unlike a lot of incels do. I'm talking about a very specific woman. Like, think the feminist that has the most horrible take ever. Let me just roll you an
The
example,
Frankie
and you'll probably
Foster
pick up
looking
exactly the
like.
type of woman I'm talking about. Also, this is a separate video to the Women versus Accountability series that I started, so look out for that as well. Anyways, here is our first clip.
I really pray it doesn't get bad enough. But being a mom in America, I had to stop walking for this. I often think that if it gets to the point of knocking on doors, God, and like, to even have these thoughts, it's like I'm literally separating from reality right now. If it comes down to me taking out myself and my kids versus us being taken and harmed by ICE. Like, God help me, I did not want to do it.
I don't understand what drives a person to grab their phone and record themselves saying the absolute most stupidest shit you could ever hear on air. Like, she hit this shit and recorded it and uploaded it. Yes, you are detaching from reality. At least you understand that. If you don't understand, this woman just said that instead of having her and her children being detained by ICE, which I don't know why she'd even have this fear anyways, maybe she looks a little bit Hispanic, but not enough for her to get detained by ICE, I'll tell you that much. But she said instead of that, she'd rather unalive herself and her children. Not only that, but then she recorded herself saying that and hit upload. Ma'am, are you on drugs? Maybe you do need your kids taken from you. I don't want to judge a book by its cover, but you could just glance.
Do you use synthetics,
and realize
psychedelics,
you're
or
probably
some
gonna hear
shit
something
like that?
really stupid. I mean, no offense, but she kind of looks like one of those tomatoes that your mom or your grandma put their sewing needles in.
This is not the life I wanted. But that is a very dark thought that I've had. Death would be a easier out than for my children to be taken.
The funniest part about this is she says, do any other moms think this way? Please tell me I'm not alone. I'm going to tell you right now, you're alone. You are alone, and you
are
be alone.
not alone.
You need somebody
Even
else in the
getting.
house with you right now to make sure your children are safe from you, and you need to go to therapy. Usually we start these type of videos out pretty tame, and we'll work our way up to these, like, extremists. But I wanted to start out the video with something like this to show you that I don't hate women, but I hate whatever this is. For our next example, when I feel bad for an elderly man, but I remember he probably likes children, hates women, and or is a cheater. This is terminally online behavior. Nobody does this in real life. Nobody
Is this
walks down the street.
normal
There's an old man, it's
dojin?
like, oh, what an old man, what a poor old guy. Oh wait, no, he actually probably touches kids. Not
Real
that
life
guy. Like,
dojin.
nobody thinks this in real life. Normal people be like, hi, how you doing? Feminists on brain rot social media be like, yeah, that old guy probably touches children. This meme has been pretty popular lately where it's like 99% of men protect, provide, sacrifice. 1% of men grape, abuse, murder. Feminists, men need to stop graping and killing us. Before we continue, I'd like to say that this meme was created in order to reassure and to calm feminists that, hey, not every man in the world is out to get you. In fact, those that are like a small percentage. And those that aren't are actually going to protect you from those that are. And some feminists responded by creating a meme, tapping the sign. Guys, I'm so quirky and passive-aggressive that implying that this is borderline common sense. Tapping the sign. And we're going to go into how just retarded this meme is. I've learned that a lot of guys visualize our social environment like this. Good men, crazed evil men. And I would say that this is actually pretty accurate. Obviously, nothing is 100% accurate, but I would say that this is a lot more accurate than what I'm going to show you below it. But it's actually closer to this. Heroic men who will intervene, well-meaning men who underestimate the issue, men who think predation is an unfortunate fact of life, men who think certain women deserve it but aren't active predators, men who passively enjoy consuming courage predation, textbook predators we're all aware of, monsters so cruel we can't even fathom them. So I have a couple of issues with this. I'll start with the third from the left. Men who think predation is an unfortunate fact of life. Predation is an unfortunate fact of life. That's an objective truth. Predation is unfortunate, and it happens in real life. Yes, in a perfect world, I'm sure majority of people, like 99.9% of people, if you ask them if you could snap your fingers and stop predation, would you do it? They would all do it. But we don't live in a perfect world like that. And I'm going to tell you right now that heroic men who will intervene are the same men who think predation is an unfortunate fact of life. How are you supposed to intervene on something if you don't think it's an unfortunate fact of life? How are you supposed to be out and actively protecting people if you don't think it's an unfortunate fact of life? Did a 14-year-old girl make this? The only thing I can think of is that they misworded it, and they think that, like, if you told a guy, one of these guys, oh, hey, you know, I got sexually assaulted, instead of being, like, empathetic, they'd be like, well, that's just life. I don't think anybody does that. I don't. Another issue I have is that this bar is completely disproportionate. I want you to visualize this. On the far right, monsters so cruel we can't even fathom them. This would be Jeffrey Epstein. all of you on the left, heroic men who would intervene. I don't have an exact model for this. Maybe Superman, maybe just a detective, unnamed detective who solves rape cases. And the middle ground of this is men who think women deserve it. So men who think women deserve it, men who passively enjoy it, and textbook predators, and then Jeffrey Epstein. These make up 50% of men? I don't know, maybe I'm taking the graph too literal, but I think you should take the men who underestimate the issue and completely squish it all the way to the right and have these other men kind of like fade in. It's also harder to take graphs like this serious when you have women like this. Why do I have incels in my comments? And then it's a simple Family Guy meme. What is this Foyd tripping about? If you don't know, Foyd equals female humanoid, a term used to dehumanize women as an excuse to grape us. You can say it's a derogatory term, but I don't think it has anything to do with that. This is probably some teenager who posts some Foyd meme semi-ironically, and now you're saying that he's a part of grape culture. She also says, don't worry because I have a 6'3" boyfriend and I know how to shoot. You're saying this over a Family Guy meme. What is this Foyd tripping about? You're threatening to shoot somebody over this. I always trust the victim first because I don't know about you, but I'd rather accidentally defend a liar than a rapist. Or you could do the smart thing and maybe choose a side after all the facts come to light.
This is why Japanese men think I'm crazy, because when I look at that bento box, it reaffirms my belief that Japan needs feminism.
Nigga, Japan needs the opposite of feminism.
This is why Japanese
facts come to light.
This is why Japanese men think I'm crazy, because when I look at that bento box, it reaffirms my belief that Japan needs feminism.
Nigga,
No.
Japan needs the opposite of feminism. I'm telling
They
you,
need
man,
the
birth rate
rabbit
is already
dasses.
declining. If you impose Western feminism beliefs into Japanese society, it's gonna go to zero.
Listen, I love how
It's already zero.
but this is unpaid, underappreciated labor that a Japanese mother is expected to do every single day for what, like 18 years?
Dude, just because she's not getting paid for it doesn't mean it's underappreciated. And
Nope.
since when is taking care of your family considered unpaid labor? Like, are you expecting her son to give her like $5 every single day? A woman sees a Japanese mom making lunch for her son with care and love.
Japanese
and is
mom,
like,
don't say that word too
actually,
loud.
I have something to complain about this. International Women's Day is only 23 hours this year, and if that's not poetic, I don't know what is. Actually, I do know what is. I have a better one. International Transgender Day of Visibility was the day before April Fool's.
What do I do if I'm falsely accused of rape and everyone believes the woman? A student asked me this question in class last week, and here's how the interaction went down. First, I clarified. You're asking what should you do in a scenario where you know you didn't SA someone, but she says you did. And he replied, yeah, like I know it was consensual. And this is where first learning lesson comes in. I reminded the classroom how important it is to stay away from the binary of SA and consent. Let's consider this, right? Alex, let's say, here's an enthusiastic yes from Sam. They get going and they're having a great time. And thinking that it would feel good for Sam, Alex puts their hand around Sam's neck and like restricts their breathing, choking them.
So that's a completely different scenario then. Like this guy, like your student wasn't asking, what do I do if I choke somebody without their permission while having sex? That's not what he asked.
Surprised and not wanting to ruin the mood, Sam lets it go on. Later, they tell people that Alex assaulted them.
But we're not talking about assault. Remember, it was specifically about grape
Assault rifle?
forward. But yeah, let's shift the goalpost. That's always healthy. I would also like to note that if you aren't comfortable talking about boundaries with somebody, especially during the heat of the moment, maybe you shouldn't be having sex with that person. Like, if you don't trust them enough that you think talking about boundaries is going to kill the mood, then you shouldn't be sleeping with that person.
This is a scenario where Alex has every reason to believe that the interaction was consensual. At the very least, they could say they got consent to have sex. Legally, they're in a pretty good place. But it's also fair to say that Alex assaulted them. being choked without the okay from someone is assaultive. And so the binary of consent and assault is limiting. It encourages us to label a situation in like one of two ways instead of actually getting into the details of why people made the choices they did and why they are feeling hurt.
So in this hypothetical scenario, how about instead of the woman going around spreading a rumor that this person's now a rapist because they got choked during consensual sex, how about they then communicate and say, hey, I didn't like what you did. Next time, can you not do that, please? Like a normal person.
Would you please, my good man, don't choke me while we are making sex.
Son. Actually, no, I got the perfect meme for this. What is this Floyd tripping about? No, seriously though, you don't think strip clubs are sexual at all? Like, not even like 1% sexual? Not even like 0.5% sexual? I mean, do people just grab like, their phone and record themselves saying the most stupidest shit ever and post it? Apparently so, man. Like, that's just what this video is about, is women just saying stupid things. Like, think about it. An area where women wear the least amount of clothing possible, sometimes in areas not even wearing clothing, shaking their breasts and butts. This is not sexual at all. Who are you to decide that? Like, who has the right to decide if a strip club is sexual or not? This Floyd? Or the men going there to get sexually
It's gonna be art, you know.
I mean, if you don't think they're sexual, then let your boyfriend go to one.
And for the people that do think it's sexual, I believe those are the rapists.
I'm being rage baited, aren't I? Rage bait or just woman? Like, which one is it?
Floyd bait.
They have this mindset. Because just because this person's half naked and dancing, that makes it sexual.
Yes, it does. It does. You don't have to Captain Save a Ho, a stripper. She knows she's being sexualized. She's okay with it. She's getting paid for it.
What? Like, what about ballerinas? They're wearing the leotard and, like, the, what's it called, things. Them dancing, is that sexual?
Yeah, ballerinas
you know,
famously known for giving
like
dances in head if you
place.
Don't get me wrong,
There's
I've
a
never
right
been
place
to a
for
strip club,
everything.
but, like, it's kind of common sense. Like, you hear stories now and
Right,
then.
back in my time.
Ballerinas are as naked as strippers.
Adder
Like,
Morgan.
one is wearing, like, more of, like, a bodysuit. And sometimes has a skirt to cover up even more. And the other one is optionally wearing a bikini. Like, bikini, top optional. It goes back to that whole stigma about women being okay being seen in a bikini, or being seen in their underwear, which is literally the same thing. If anything, less revealing. That's not okay. But the argument against that is that it's the consent.
That is just me against the
You can
world,
say the same
baby.
for a stripper and a ballerina.
Baby.
A ballerina is not consenting to being sexualized, but a stripper is. Literally amongst her peers in her own ideology, this woman is the one with the greatest mindset for sexualizing a ballerina just because she's wearing tight clothes. If a man had made that comparison, a stripper to a ballerina, they would drag his face through concrete.
Like, what? Like, it just does not make sense. Yo, it's not sexual at all. But people make it sexual, and those are the same people, I believe, based off my mindset and based off, like, what I believe, those are the people that have this mindset.
But how? The stripper knows she's being sexualized and she's consenting to it by doing her job. And the guys there are knowing that the stripper is okay with it.
Oh my god, septum ring. No, fuck this video. Fuck this video. Fuck this video. Schizos of Instagram. Listen, let's go.
It said, Mark Zuckerberg? Mark Zuckerberg? you know who Mark Zuckerberg is? Do research. But look. No, you're not. Mark Zuckerberg? See?
I've heard enough. This guy's making insanely good sense right now. I think because of this, we should send $10 trillion.
Same guy
Israel.
again.
My Instagram algorithm be getting weird sometimes. You know what I mean? You like one schizophrenic meme on Instagram, and all of a sudden your feed is full of stuff like this.
Instagram check right now.
Trabalhando pra deixar vagabundo rico, meu. O bagulho é trabalhar pra ficar rico, meu. Vender cocaína, crack. Matar, roubar e destruir.
Isso aí, mano.
Falei pra tu, irmão. Forma na boca. Bagulho de trabalho.
One thing before I go, please.
Não dá com nada.
Não, trabalhar pra firma é o caralho. Tem que abrir o próprio negócio. O problema é... Porra. Vender droga é feião, pô. Tem que ir lá, tem que respirar gás tóxico. Eu não gosto não,
Put me on like your iPad or the biggest screen you got and come all over me. I want a tribute done to me. And please send that to me on Twitter, I guess.
Oye, hermano.
I think you would get banned.
Este InDrive está, pero este un creo que trabaja en la NASA. Trabaja en la NASA, me parece hacker, mira. Mira cómo. Che, este está bien.
Ô, João, pausa.
DJ Wagner, o próprio original. O DJ da BR 153.
Palio Mix.
La estaquera a la deriva puede ganar el Charger. La ganó Charger, sigue Charger, solo Charger, solo Charger, solo. Tiro.
So good. Poison.
I was checking defectives to see if I can find a controller, and I found the goddamn Joker holding the Blue Eyes White Dragon PS. I was checking defectives.
Slow down. What the fuck are you cussing? Lift your leg up, pick your leg up. Pick your leg up. Do it. Still up, move your leg. Boys, cuss boys.
Look. He's fully snapped his leg, he's only cracked.
Damn!
No. Slow down. What the fuck are you cussing?
Damn. Oh, fuck.
Hoje vamos comer em paz.
E aí, o mulato preto do roxo? Me removeu, né, filha da puta? Não tem argumentação, né, filha da puta? Goi de merda, pagão, tu é goi, bicho, tu é goi. Tu se ajoelha pra um judeu, seu filho do puta.
Fraca bota a capa, bicho. Chuva forte para. Não fica mandando foto de chuva pra mim não, velho. Vão pro pau. Chegar na N e falar que parou por causa de chuvinha fraca, bicho. Os caras me espanam. Então, ou a gente tiver com medo de chuva aí, já fala. Chuva fraca bota a capa, bicho. Chuva forte para. Não fica mandando foto de chuva.
Sua sala tá bonita?
Apesar da pouca idade, sabe melhor do que ninguém como jogar o Yu-Gi-Oh!
Hoje eu não posso. Eu tô me cagando.
Uma prova pra Interpol, tu tinha que falar em inglês. Fala uma frase em inglês, por favor.
Deixa eu ver. Feijão com farinha.
Ei, vamos dar ali, bah. Seguinte, né? Quase me atrasei pra vocês. Ei, não por nada, tava os autobots despachado. Não, o Megatron tá me procurando, né? Ah, tava eu, Optimus Prime no caminhão baixadinho. Negativo, né? Ei, não por nada. E o seguinte, né? Peguei o relógio do Ben 10 agora. Ei, não por nada. Ei, o Medetrix, né? Ei, o que nós vamos virar hoje? XLR8, modo turbo, na pista. Vamos. É o seguinte...
Quase falando russo.
Working on a weekend like usual. Atenção. Working on a weekend like usual.
Working on a weekend like usual. Working on a weekend like usual. Working on a weekend like usual. Working on a weekend like usual. Way off in the deep end like usual. Working on a weekend like usual. Working on a weekend like usual.
Tem que ter calma pra. Se começar a atrapalhar muito, vira o lado, que aqui tem uma alcinha, ó.
Bem-vindo, Moreno.
E aí, Pantero?
Para onde vamos hoje?
Tem que botar você pra lavar, que tá muito sujo.
Vou não. Tá um frio da porra.
Sim, meu filho, se vai ficar sujo, é?
Quando fizer sol, eu vou.
Ó, velho, já fui, viu?
De boa.
I can't say that our current circumstances.
Yes, bro, they have a great.
Foi a semana, né, pesada? Depois da manhã já é quarta-feira. Meu Deus do céu.
Mas eu acho que esse restinho de semana nem adianta mais, né, cara? Tá, já se foi a semana, né? Não dá mais pra fazer nada, porque daí que tá que hoje chove, daí você começa um servicinho hoje, daí já vem o fim de semana, daí já não dá pra fazer bem feito, então é o certo é nem ir. Eu essa semana aí já berrou, vai fazer o quê, né? Hoje já, acho que já parte só mais 2 dias pra quarta-feira e daí mais 2 dias é sexta-feira, já você foi, né? Já berrou a semana.
Ô Eduardo, seus meninos também, velho. Ô
Meu
Eduardo.
Deus, cara.
Ah, Eduardo. Aí, o que seu menino fez, Eduardo? Ô Eduardo, seus meninos também, velho. Ô Eduardo.
Eduardo.
Ah, Eduardo.
Aí.
Luckily for you guys, I actually
Acho que acabou. Não tem mais nada. É, o YouTube morreu. Boa noite. Agora é só eu e o Nether. Eu sou o Nether. E o Nether é eu. A minha missão é uma: fazer um beacon de netherite. Perguntar. Tem que perguntar aqui. Quantos de Quantos nether debris são necessários para fazer um bico de nether? Minecraft. Burro do caralho, velho. Eita, bico. Um bloco é feito de 36 blocos de debris. 36 ouros. Para fazer um bico pirâmide consistindo inteiramente de blocos netherite, são necessárias 5.950 peças de bagulho. Tem quantos packs? Tem uma calculadora, porra. 5.904 dividido por 64. Tá, são 337 packs. Aqui. 2, 3, 9, 27. Eu vou gozar. Não, pera. Um baú. Tem. Fudeu. Estou muito feliz. Um baú tem 56 slots. Então, preciso de... Um baú. Pera aí. O baú tem 54 slots. 25, 25, 50 mais 7. Vai dar 50 slots. 54 slots em baú. Se eu preciso de 377 packs de Ancient Debris, precisar encher 6 baús. Puta que pariu. Fudeu pra caralho. Fora o ouro. O ouro é fácil. Só apenas 7 a 8 baús cheios. Legal. Eu vou parar de pegar quartzo do teto. Pegou muito tempo já. Open the door. This is my neighborhood. The door. Gonna come in the door. I wanna feel, I wanna heal. saber? Eu devo pegar quartos. Foda-se também. Oh, fuck! Motherfucker, fuck you, motherfucker. Fuck you, motherfucker. I'm gonna get you, baby. I'm gonna get you, baby. I'm gonna get you, baby. I'm gonna get you, yes I will. Somewhere I belong. Die, motherfucker, die. Motherfucker. A flecha no meu rabo, velho. Anyone? You stupid. Poop. Cool. Ai. Venga, Fulir, Spire, González. Preso, cara. Easy. Não, fazer puro só pra comer mesmo, entendeu? Foi. Não. 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 Cama de merda, né, cara? Puta que pariu. Leitinho. Ai, leitinho. Pif paf, 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 pif paf. É isso que eu escuto o dia inteiro. Pif paf, 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 pif paf. Foda esse bioma, hein? Porra. Porra, cara, já foram 200 blocos, viado. Que isso? Acaba nunca não, velho. Aí sim. Tamo junto. Tamo junto pra caralho. Vai tomar no cu. Sabe que sobe dega.
Captain on bridge.
Peidei.
今日の仕事は終わりました。アラハトですか？その話。いい眠気覚ましです。
What?
「アラハトですか？その話。
Enjoy the silence. É. Caralho, muito. Caralho, o tamanho. Nossa, eu nunca vou dormir em live, velho. Vai se fuder. Olha essa jama. Muito bom, muito bom. Bring it the money, dollar dollar bill, yo. O maluco acordou. O maluco gemendo. Ice Cube. Pum, 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 pum. Que isso, cara? Ice Cube discography. Damn. Bitch, get off my dick. All Ice Cube songs. All. Acho que tá melhor. You boy. Música da Rihanna no meio. Novo. Foda-se também. O nome dos caras. Fudi. $200. Yeah. Yeah. Dormir.